Welcome to the Actor's Career Compass, where we help aspiring screen actors find high-quality auditions, sign with great agents, and book major roles in legit productions. I'm your host, Martin Bentsen, and today I interview Court Zeppernick. We'll be covering how he went from on-air work, doing radio, to consistent acting auditions, how he streamlines the self-tape process to save tons of time and energy, and the biggest lessons that he learned while building momentum in TV and film to start getting numerous auditions every single week. Plus, we'll be discussing tons of other useful things for actors. All right, so Court Zeppernick is...
Hello.
He is an aspiring actor with an extensive on-air background within a number of other on-air career fields. He's eager to utilize that experience to cross over into the world of TV and film. Court has compiled several credits so far, actually more than several, if we're being honest, in his acting career, and he is relentless in his pursuit of finding work. Thank you for joining me today, Court.
Thank you for having me. Thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, so I was... before we started recording, just kind of apologizing about my crazy background today.
Yeah.
But, sometimes we have those crazy days, and here I am in the studio. But we're going to be talking about all of the things that you've been working on. And I'd love for you to just start off by kind of giving a little walkthrough of your acting journey. Like, how did you get to the point where you are? I remember when I first met with you, you had you did a lot of stuff. First off, you had like a zillion different videos showing you doing all different voices and characters and all this stuff. And I could tell right off the bat that you're like a very hard worker and all of that. But tell us, like, now things are a little bit different. You're very strategic with stuff. How did you get from very beginning to then putting together all of that stuff to where you are now?
Well, at the very beginning, I was pretty naive. I didn't really know. I just kind of guessed as to, is this acting? Is this the technique I'm supposed to do? I was just looking to impress people and hit the ground running right away. And I still had, like, when I made all those impression videos, which at the time, just like the Village Idiot, I thought was acting. It wasn't really acting, and I had a feeling about that. So that's why I wanted to seek guidance and seek clarification as, okay, yes, they're good impressions. No one has said they're bad. They show potential, they show promise, but what's the real authentic Court Zeppernick as an actor? So there was some doubt and some ambiguity while I was making those videos. And I decided, okay, well, now that I might as well get the critique on them. I find out it's not entirely wrong, but it is wrong. It's not entirely wrong. So you're on the right track, but just do it how you want to do it. So do it how you would actually do it. So, I then all of a sudden the creativity gene in my brain began to wake up, and I was thinking of okay, here are some scenes I could do that, I recall past life experiences that I could just do in my normal voice and do as a normal human being. And, they're not overly dramatic. They're not overly complicated. And okay, yeah, this actually, makes it easier. I'm not so conscious about the lines and every detail from what I was impersonating and doing an impression of that actor. I'm doing it how I want to do it on my terms. So once I got clarity on how acting works, and including with classes, including with relocating to LA and seeing how the business side works, but also, aspiring to be the level 4 actor, that has made things a lot different, as opposed to even a year and a half ago where I was so worried about, do I raise my right hand? Do I raise my right eyebrow? Or, oh no, I didn't look the right way. So things like that. So making it more natural and realistic.
Nice. Yeah, I remember when we first met for, I think we just did a career audit a long time ago. It was, like a year and a half or two?
Yeah, April 2024.
Okay, yeah, so almost a year and a half ago, I guess. And yeah, I looked at your profile and I was like, hey, this stuff is great for practice. Like you learned probably so much stuff, and it also showed how like hardworking you were. And I was like, wow, someone who creates this many videos, and these were simple videos. It wasn't like you were going crazy. I mean, you were like just setting up your camera and filming yourself doing these different impressions, but
Correct.
it just shows, and you put together a website and all of this stuff. It shows how hardworking and driven you are. But it was just kind of like, hey, while these are good practice, the industry wants to see who are you, not how do you compare to the best of the best actors who perform those roles with way more direction than you had, right? When you do
Right.
something, that's like why when someone is shooting a scene for their demo reel, let's say, we always recommend doing something original, because if you do something that's like a well-known scene, the person who's watching it is instantly going to think of that well-known scene and compare you to it. And
Hmm.
that's a difficult comparison, right?
And that's what I had in the back of my mind too. So I was like, this could be all wrong. We don't know. I mean, at least the talent's there now. It's, I guess, just have to manufacture it into something that's original and something that's me personally. So
Yeah.
that's good to know. Now that's water under the bridge now, because now so quickly that's already elapsed and I've already begun doing my own scenes, and now every audition I do and the high volume of them is always just me, myself, and I doing it. So
Yeah, no, and we're going to definitely be talking about that. Before we move into that, I just want to clarify for anybody who's watching this and isn't 100% sure of what you meant when you said level four actor. Some people don't know. I just kind of categorize the levels of acting in my programs. Level one being something that's like overdone, let's say, or melodramatic. It's kind of a little bit too big and, you know, not natural for film acting. Level two is once you hone that back down and it's much more subtle and realistic for film acting, but you're still not clear on your choices. Level three is once you get hyper clear on your choices, you know exactly what's happening and all the choices and the whole scene makes sense to watch. And finally, where you're aspiring to be and working on consistently is the level four, which is basically, as I classify it, a place where everything is completely natural, but you're making stronger choices that are more interesting to watch. Like you're raising the stakes and making the scene much more like emotionally engaging for the audience and like, ooh, what's going to happen next? So that's just in case anybody who's watching this isn't familiar with the four levels. Now, recording, like you're getting a lot of auditions, so tell us on average right now, like how often are you auditioning, let's say, like how many auditions, let's say, are you getting each month or each week or whatever, and recording that many self tapes for auditions, it can be exhausting. So like what kind of strategies do you use to get your auditions done efficiently and in a timely manner?
well, I would say I audition about 3 to 4 times a week, so very high volume. Like even from the last stanza when I spoke with you, I have like four pending right now. So, I mean, once again, I attribute that to the headshots and I attribute that to the demos that I currently have. But it does the high volume of them does get overwhelming at times, especially when there's a ton of stage direction, like one I just had, where it's like 8 paragraphs of all these instructions on what to say, what to do. It says have fun, be relaxed. So it does get kind of it does get overwhelming. So but then I keep thinking, okay, at this time like a year ago, I didn't have a clue on where to find auditions, where to do, like I wasn't even signed up for, Actors Access Casting Networks till September 2024. So I was doing like the networking thing, and I was still in the process of getting my demo reels and getting the footage that I needed, the authentic footage. But in terms of how do I prepare for them, well, I mean, now I'm not really as much concerned about the lines. I'm more concerned about what's going on, the realism around me. So the first aspect I take into consideration, the most salient point would be, how do I make this real? How do I make this, how is this as authentic as it can be? So don't worry about the lines, worry about maybe the behavior, maybe worry about what's going on around you. So for example, if you're a doctor and you're delivering bad news, All right. The first thing I'm doing is, okay, I'm not going to come wearing a stethoscope. I'm not going to come wearing a big white coat with my, name in cursive on it. I'm going to bring a white shirt. All right. I got to identify why is this happening? Okay. This person is disease stricken and they're not going to live much longer. And we just got the diagnosis and I have to give the news, break the news to the family. So I mean, that's I find that very simple. And then at the very end of all that, once I understand and identify the why, that's when I'll begin to look at the words more, without never being too much focused on the words. Like I've even talked to you like, oh no, I looked down at the script once. That means I'm not gonna get it. But I don't think that's true, because if you can be believable and realistic, even if you look down at the script once or twice, but it still looks believable and sounds believable, then then everything else will take care of itself. So always focusing on the why and the situation in a very like tight quarters too. Like you don't have much space to move around. You can't do like a backflip. You can't even, in my self tapes, you can't even stand up and sit down at the same time, because the camera won't catch you doing that, because there are a lot of scenes where, okay, he stands up, comes to the front of the line, or he stands up and then begins doing his speech that he's giving at an orientation. That's not the case. So just not worried about the stage direction, but also worried about why this is happening and what's going on around me before I begin worrying about the lines. Now, I'll be honest, I do look at the lines, and if I see a lot of lines, I get all nervous too, like it tight, like, oh no, like how am I? So, and that's not what acting is about. It's about living truthfully under the imaginary circumstances. So the circumstances always begin before the lines.
It's definitely important to understand what's going on and why your character is saying the things that they're saying before focusing on line memorization. Obviously, the more that you can memorize the lines, the easier it makes it. It's not like you're not going to get a role if you don't know the lines and you glance at the script, but you are going to not get the role if your lack of knowing the lines impacts your performance negatively and starts causing you to mess things up, obviously. But it's always going to be easier to memorize the lines once you understand and make choices for the scene. Because the more familiar you are with what's going on and why your character is saying this stuff, the easier it becomes to remember what they're actually saying. If you have no idea what they're talking about and you're just like looking at the words, it becomes way harder to memorize them.
Yeah, I'm in also like an adept financial situation where like I can use a reading service, and using a reader that knows what they're doing, and a service like I do here in LA that knows what they're doing is very beneficial, because they can help guide you along. And because in this day and age, like I've only had a 5 or 6 total auditions that are in person. So, and that's not even true. Like 4 of them were over Zoom, but I've had maybe 3 or 4 that are actually in person. But the vast majority are self-taped. So there's a mulligan if you mess up. And, I mean, I still in the back of my mind thinking, oh no, if this was in person, like, I don't want to be discouraged because I didn't get it right the first time. But having like a quality reader and having people who know the scene, even there are times where they even know it better than I do, because I'll get the audition at 8 a.m. and then I have to book it before work at noon. So I have to go to the service in Hollywood and do it and then go right to work. I don't barely have time, just commuting to Hollywood, to even like really go over it until we actually get there. So a reader that knows what they're doing and knows what's going on just as well, if not more well than you do, is very beneficial.
Yeah. Do most of the auditions that you get come from you self-submitting or from an agent? And also, how did you approach reaching out to agents? Like what strategies did you use to stand out when you were looking for an agent?
Well, most of the auditions I get are from me self-submitting, and then once again, they're nothing, too major. I mean, I'll see like once in a while, I'll see like a big-time casting director, like, ooh, I'd recognize her on Actors Access through the breakdowns. But most of them, are between the realm of student films, short films, independent films, episodics, but I mean, the high volume of them just does not stop. There have been times where I've had to refrain from going on Actors Access just because I wanted to go visit family in San Diego because I didn't want to have to do an audition reading with my grandma, for example. So, but I've said I've had an agent since January 2025. So since for about 6-7 months. All right. And I submitted to him back in December of 2024. And, this is just based on background research, like, just type in agents near me. And there's so many agencies, like boutique agencies, that someone who is fairly new to the industry can begin submitting to. And the one was hesitant, he was reluctant at first to sign me because I'm not in SAG. All right. But then when I met with him, he didn't even reply to me the first time, but then I sent a follow-up to him, and his associate said that he was interested in scheduling a meeting with the agent. So, this was back in December, and then finally by mid-January, I met with him, and he kind of emphasized the importance of becoming SAG eligible, or getting into SAG, because his roster, everyone else is pretty much on SAG now. They're a lot more experienced, but he saw something in terms of the demo, the cumulative demo reel, and the material that I have on my website that was, that intrigued him. So there was no signings, it's non-exclusive. So we just did a handshake, and then here I am. And since then, I've had about 5 auditions from him that, are these non-publicized roles, 2 being General Hospital, 1 being a Roku film. And the General Hospital one resulted in a callback, 1 being a Roku film, and then this one being a Hulu 20th Century Fox production, Untitled. So that's when I just did this in the past 72 hours. So finding an agent, I mean, I still, like, behind the scenes, look for agents too, just to since it's non-exclusive, just to publicize my stuff as much as possible. So I always have this, this impetus to always be looking for the next available person that could help me with my career as well. So, but in terms of finding the agent, I was in a good place just because I had so much to show him based on my website, and it's like I had to make him say no, which thankfully he didn't.
I'm sure the people listening to this are probably thinking, oh, he mentioned that he didn't hear back from the agent the first time, but then followed up and heard back, right? That big question mark for a lot of actors of I'm reaching out, but I'm not hearing back from anybody. What kind of follow up did you send? And do you remember what you said in the follow up? Do you think that that's the reason that the agent decided to reach out to you, because of the follow up? Or what do you think was the most compelling reason that the agent did agree to a meeting?
Well, the one thing I think in terms of the follow up, it was concise. Like the first one was like this big cover letter that I looked at, an outline or a forum in terms of how to approach an agent. And I've gotten follow ups before saying, "Oh, we'll take a look, we'll consider you. Oh, we'll take a look," and then I've even auditioned for some, and I just didn't hear back from them. But this one in particular, I was thinking, okay, might as well just send like a 3 to 4 sentence follow up, just saying, hey, good afternoon. Briefly, I wanted to follow up regarding my submission for theatrical representation. If interested, I'd be thrilled to speak with you. Just very, like, making it sound like they're important, and making it sound as if they matter the most. So just making it concise and making it straightforward, without being annoying. That's the one fear I have. I don't want to pester. I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to sound like I'm like stupid, that I don't know like the ins and outs of the agency or the ins and outs of how the business works. But yeah, I mean, once again, but I think the most important thing is you have to have the materials. You have to have the evidence. It's an evidence-based business. You have to have the evidence showing, so otherwise they're not going to take you seriously, whether you're in SAG or not. So my only downfall with him was, okay, he's not in SAG yet, but he has the power in a way to contribute to make that happen. So therefore, yeah, he's like, "Oh, take a chance." And I've been signed with him ever. I've had about 4 to 5 critical auditions for him that I'm currently right now waiting to hear back on one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely really important to test different types of emails. Some agents do respond to slightly longer emails that go more in depth, but oftentimes it is best to kind of keep things a little bit on the shorter side so that they just kind of see right away what you have. And then you can kind of give them more details once they're interested. You know, you kind of give them like I remember a business coach that I used to follow. He says like give people the chicken nugget first because that's easy and
Right.
delicious. And then eventually you can give them the kale salad, which is like what they need, but they don't want
Right.
that.
Exactly. That's a good analogy.
So now I'd like to ask because actually it's funny, you know, you're talking a little bit about how important it was that you had so much stuff to show for it, right? Like all of those recordings that you did, your website, the numbers that you built up by submitting for different things and auditioning for them. But it makes me wonder, which is my next question, what's like a specific mistake that you made early on that maybe you would have done differently?
Oh my God. I would say not dropping out of high school and moving to Hollywood. All right. Waiting too long haunts me to this day because there was a time, like I come from a sports background, like I from Columbus, Ohio. So I mean that's a big like sports town. So sports were like the DNA of my existence. So I come from a sports and then it transitioned into news and then slowly it transitioned into entertainment. So I was always looking for careers as like a sports commentator or a news anchor, things like that. But then over time, you realize like this is great, and I still want to do it, and it's still a passion of mine to this day. But it's not as worthwhile. Like maybe I could be doing more. So I mean, I see all these examples, just living by comparison of famous people who began, as a singer, and then and it always circled back to them somehow becoming an actor too. And so I was thinking like, okay, not saying like, oh, that's easy, or boastfully thinking, oh, I could do that. I'm thinking, okay, well, you have the experience on air. Nobody has, shattered your work on air. You know what it's like to be comfortable on the camera. So why this whole time haven't you crossed over into acting? And then also another aspect that I regret is I used to think like, oh, that it's too complicated to like find out how to be an actor. And I don't have all the answers. Clearly, I know a lot more now, but I'm like, oh, like, oh, an actor. The cliche thing is, oh, that's one in a million, like like. But then I'm thinking, like, well, okay, well, how do you even hear about the role? How do you even find out about the big time major opportunity? All right, so I'm thinking like, oh, that would be too complicated, and I don't know, and oh, it's too scary living, that far away from home or doing this. So all these like all this like negative Nancy type like talk that kind of like spawned in my head over time. And then when I got here, I came in actually with a pessimistic mindset, like, okay, whatever happens, happens. Like the sky has fallen. So, and it's actually in terms of like the amount of work, um, I like it's kind of play as you practice. So I'm like getting all these auditions and meeting all these people, and I'm like, okay, it's just why didn't I do this 10 years ago, for example, too? And then the other thing is, I used to not be real concerned about my appearance. So and now I granted, like even told me once, like I asked you, why is it always someone good looking who makes it in terms of talent? You said there are plenty of like weird, like ugly actors. So, and I would have fit into that category like years ago. So, my first thought too is like when I first began thinking about acting, a career transitioning into acting at the forefront of my career. Still yeah, I still wish I could be like a game show host at times, or I still wish I could be a sports commentator at times. But acting's now at the forefront of my career. My first thought is, oh man, I gotta like get to the gym. I gotta like do weights. I have to get, like look like I have to, get redo my braces and comb my hair and things like that, because you can't be an actor if you're not good looking. So like I spent like a year, 2 years, like rigorously training and like thinking like, okay, all I have to do is look like really good, and then then everything will be handed to me. And then I realized, okay, I'm like, I'm not eating broccoli on a stick forever and then not getting the results I want. So that was something too. Like, I wish I would have taken care of my appearance, you know, like when I was like, in high school or college or things like that. And then at least I wouldn't have to like spend what it felt so much time, because I'm focused on, not even focused on the talent. I'm like, oh, I already got the talent. I already have this. I already have that. I just need to make myself look good, because like you can't be an actor if you're ugly. So, or so that's what I was thinking too. So, so that like, took up so much time, as opposed to like, oh, why didn't I like move here and then begin like at least learn, like, take classes, learn more about how the industry works, and then um do the in a way easy aspect of eating right, um taking care of your appearance, which that's not the case either, because I also told you, like, from my life experience, like the good looking people are always like the good looking dude. So I always wonder, like, why is it always someone good looking that's an actor, and the good looking dude is, he's usually like a dolt and has no personality, talking to a wall. And then the good looking girl is always like an introvert, like, oh, I'd rather die than say hi. That's from my life experience, like through high school and college. So like, I'd see like a lot of good looking like girls and like handsome dudes, and it was like talking to a wall each time. So I'm thinking, like, what if you're really like ugly and weird looking, and you can be more believable in terms of being sad or being in a hostile situation, as opposed to the good looking person. So I've realized that over time too. So not getting going early enough and not taking care of your appearance are two things that like really like were so time consuming. And it was all just living in speculation, like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, what do I do, and then finally I had enough, and then just came out here and realized, oh, why didn't I do this like 10 years ago? Why was I still in high school?
Yeah, I mean that that stuff definitely makes sense. I have one client who recently changed something with his teeth and has actually been getting way more auditions since doing that, right? I mean,
uh,
these things like this are important, obviously, in the industry, no matter how unfortunate people might find it, like what you look like, you know, even though it shouldn't apply and
right.
doesn't in usually most regular jobs. With acting, obviously, it's all about
Yeah.
your face and how you look on camera. So it is important to take into consideration those things. Um, and obviously, like, starting though as soon as possible as well, like you're saying, like for anybody who's listening to this, you might be listening and be like, oh, well, I'm not in high school now, did I wait too long? It's like, well, I mean, at least if you start today, you're way ahead of where you might be if you wait another 5 years. So starting and doing the training and all of that stuff can happen at the same time as working on things like your appearance and everything. I would say, just if I was giving some advice myself, is think about the kinds of characters that you could realistically play, and then ask yourself, are there things that I might want to do to kind of make myself even more able to get those kinds of roles? You know, that's sort of
Right, right.
an initial step. And what you do is, I always say, like, start by changing certain aspects of yourself to fit the roles that you want to get. Then start booking those roles. Once you're booking those and you've built up your career a bit, then you can change yourself and be however you want to be. And you'll still get all the roles that you want, because you'll have kind of earned the right to be true to yourself. The problem is a lot of people feel like, oh, I should be true to myself and do whatever, look however I want, and the world should book me for the roles I want. But that's not the truth at the beginning. You have to earn that right by putting in the work and maybe changing certain things about yourself, or changing the types of roles that you submit for, until you've built up enough of a career that you can kind of be yourself and still keep getting lots of work. So it's an interesting thing, but getting started as soon as possible is so important. My last main question for you is, if you could give specific advice to actors who are struggling, especially when it comes to discipline or consistency. because that seems to be your strong suit, right? You've done so many things and you're all about taking action and keep on doing, keep pounding the pavement and making it happen, getting these auditions, continuously submitting yourself, all of that. Even after you get an agent, a lot of actors will stop, right, when they get an agent, but you keep going because you know how important it is. But some actors do struggle with following through long term, or they get burnt out or whatever. Do you have any advice to share to people like that?
My advice, in terms of like lacking motivation and getting discouraged, is I always think like, okay, leave Hollywood and go do what? Go back and live in your parents' basement or something like that. Like, or like, there's nothing else for me back home. Now, this is just, respective of my circumstances. Like, for example, like I don't come from a big like social background. I don't have like any other options. It feels so. I feel like I might be standing at my waiting tables job for another 50 years if it means being Brad Pitt. So like I'm like keep thinking there's nothing if I still really want to succeed in the industry, so there's nothing that can really discourage me. Okay, but I also think it's very important to like be realistic in terms of the talent you have. Like there's a natural like the acting the instructor even told me like the class I take, look, there's a natural ability to do it, act, but that's only going to take you like so far. So, one of my biggest problems I'd say is like popularity. Like I get discouraged. I don't get discouraged about my acting technique. I don't get discouraged about like the physical talent and the demos and the creativity I have. I get the thing that kind of like bothers me and makes me like, oh man, is living by comparison and thinking like, well, why am I not, why is the real estate agent back home still more popular than me on Instagram, for example, or things like that? So I keep thinking, okay, so due to my circumstances, due to my disadvantages in terms of popularity and being seen and being discovered, that is where I'm putting most of my focus in. So I'm, finding all the producers, all the casting directors, all the directors on IMDb, or doing all the in-depth layered research to find people to contact and saying, okay, well, until like 9 out of 10 people shatter my acting technique, I'm not going to worry about the acting technique. I'll still worry about it, but right now I'm looking to like get publicized, get seen. So it's really understanding whether it's the talent issue or whether it's a popularity issue, and deciding, okay, like, if people are just being nice and saying, look, your acting's like it's good, but it needs a lot of work. It can't be like good. It has to be like through the roof great. So it's whatever is more of a striking problem, I would say, to be more eager in terms of finding a solution to. So I think that boils down to either your talent or your publicity. So in terms of being discouraged, the only thing that would discourage me right now would be like, oh, I just don't have the publicity. Like, how do I get seen? How do I get discovered? So that's where I put more of the focus and energy. So even though I get discouraged, it's still unwavering in terms of my like relentlessness in terms of finding. Because as soon as I see the slightest opportunity, I like pounce on it, and
Yeah.
so
It
so
sounds like
that's
it
just my
sounds like you're
circumstances.
you're kind of saying that a lot of times people can get discouraged in particular because they're putting so much effort into something that might actually be the wrong area to focus on. And if they step back a little bit, get strategic about it, and ask themselves, what is realistically going to create the biggest difference in my career? And now I'm going to focus on that, then they'll see more results and they'll be less likely to get discouraged. Is that right?
Right, right. Yeah. What's the biggest thing plaguing me right now? Now, that's not to say that there's still issues. Like everyone can get better. Like there's still like issues I have to. But right now, like even like going to class. All right, I know how life works here now. I have a routine. I think that's important too. Getting into a routine, whether it's in terms of like how you know what life is going to be about as an actor. So okay, I can already pretty much say for certain by next week I'm gonna have at least 1 to 2 auditions. So I already know what that's going to be like. So now it just comes down to like how do I keep building my brand? How do I keep building my image so it'll become more marketable and more publicized?
Yeah. That sounds awesome and makes a lot of sense. It's actually inspired me to potentially do a podcast specifically on
Yeah.
that. How do I know, or how do I figure out what I need to spend my time focused on or working on to get the biggest benefit? Because it's so important. You can't just keep like
Yeah.
submitting to things and whatever and have no idea what is working and what's not, and you're just gonna get like burnt out
Right.
so quickly.
And
So
another thing is too, and this is something that's more recently. I even like asked my dad about it like a couple months ago. Is like, and this you could probably answer this right on the spot. Is how does someone know who has never done it before that they are a good actor? How does someone know that they're going to make? How does like Tom Cruise know he was gonna make it big? It's the same thing with like singing too. Like, how do you know if you're a really good singer? How or how or an athlete? How do you know if you're really good at basketball in the backyard? But how do you know you're NBA worthy? Or how do you know you're a really good singer? So how do you like? What are the signs? Like, how do you know you're gonna like go into acting and just like take the world by storm? Or same thing with singing. So, and my dad said, well, it's not based on you, it's based on someone's perception, I guess. So, like there are a lot of people, singers I hear, I'm like, how do they just let anyone on the radio these days? And then there's some I'm like, well, yeah, obviously. So I was thinking, like, how do you know you're a good actor? Because I came in thinking, okay, I can do all these Heath Ledger and all these, Denzel Washington impressions. So, I mean, and that's just me not doing, and that's just me playing someone else. So therefore, imagine me doing my own self. So I can like use these as a platform. So that must mean I'm a good actor because I can do all these, quick impressions and these self tapes that look, believable, but they're not really acting. So my question is, how does someone know that they're a good actor and that they can make it big? Just like, how does someone know they can sing? Because anyone can sing. It doesn't mean you're good. And there are people who think they're good, but how do they know they're like duh? Of
yeah,
course, I'm an amazing singer. Like, duh, I'm an amazing actor. So how do you know that?
well, I mean, that's also definitely a good idea for a podcast to do. And what I'll say very briefly as we get ready to wrap up is this. There's obviously two sides to the equation, as we've talked about earlier in the episode. There's the acting side, and then there's the business side. There's plenty of people out there who are amazing singers, but have never done anything with it and never went anywhere. They might even be a better singer than some of the more popular artists. Same thing with actors, right? But there is the am I actually good or not, which kind of comes down to that level 4 framework that I was describing earlier. I like to say, like, the best way to know for sure whether you're actually good or not is by submitting yourself. You want to start getting auditions. If you're getting consistent auditions and you are booking less than 1 out of 10 of them, and these are not student films. Unpaid student films don't count as a criteria for whether you're a good actor. It should be at least a paid role, like for a
Right.
indie
Yeah.
project or something, because they tend to be a lot more discerning on your acting ability. If you're getting the audition for it, that means that they like your look and see you as a potential candidate. If you're not booking, it's one of two reasons. Either A, you actually don't look at all like what they expected, or your voice or something is completely different than what they expected. That's usually not the case if you have clips on your profile already, right? So if you've got clips, chances are that that's not the problem. The other reason is because potentially you're acting, there's something about it that people are seeing that's off. So the feedback from the industry, once you start booking 1 out of 10 or higher, which is a 10%, the best of the best actors book typically between 20 and 30% of the auditions that they do. So for every 10 auditions, they're booking either 2 or 3 of them. Okay. That's kind of how to know whether your acting is strong enough to actually start getting booked in bigger projects. And then beyond that, it's the business side. So anyway,
Right.
I really appreciate you joining today on this podcast. This was super helpful. I think a lot of people are going to walk away with some useful strategies. You've shared a lot. You've shared how people can go about getting an agent and the importance of using shorter notes. You've shared the importance of creating lots of content for yourself and how agents actually care about that. We've learned so many different things. Even the mistakes that you made and the importance of taking action now. So this has been like super helpful. I want to really thank you for spending some time talking about all of this stuff. And yeah, it's just thank you if you're like open to sharing any contact info for people if they have any questions or want to email you, you're welcome to, but I also understand if you prefer to not share that in case people are.
Oh yeah. www.courtzeppernick.com. That's actually the easiest, most simplest way I market myself. Like, you want everything you need to know about me is at www.courtzeppernick.com. Everything. So,
Excellent.
that's the way I market myself. It's an easy way to do it because I'm confident, like, okay, the material's there. Like, people are gonna want to see more. This is just a glimpse of it. So these are the things I can offer. These are the things I can bring to the table. So if you have a real simple way to market yourself that doesn't sound overwhelming or complicated, like you don't want to put like 80 million links or tell me about yourself. If you have like www.courtzeppernick.com, ZEPPERNICK, courtzeppernick.com. That will tell you. And I got more content coming soon too. So so
we'll share the link as well in the description for the episode so people can just click it and go straight to your website.
Cool.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening. Now, if you want to dive even deeper on getting lots of auditions, I highly recommend checking out a podcast I did called 3 Numbers You Must Track to Boost Auditions. It's episode number 195. I dive deep on strategies to track, measure, and improve your numbers over time so that you start auditioning way more frequently. Check it out again. It's episode number 195, 3 Numbers You Must Track to Boost Auditions on the Actor's Career Compass. Now, if you found the show helpful, I would really appreciate if you could leave a review, as it does help more actors find the show. Just go to ratethispodcast.com/actor success. Really would appreciate it. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.